It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it is great to have you in studio with us today. Art Gonzalez with the Kaibab National Forest. He is their Forest Fire Staff Officer. Welcome back, Art.
Thanks for having me back.
Were you here this spring?
Yeah, we were here this spring talking about what the winter kind of held in store and what we were looking at for the fire season. So.
All right, well, I told you before the show, Tuesday we had Vic Morfin from Coconino National Forest, and he gave us kind of an update on how things went over the wildfire season on the Coconino National Forest and kind of a look ahead at the fall and winter burn season. And then we're not going to ask you to look in the crystal ball and tell us what next year is going to be like because it's
I appreciate that.
Yeah, we just can't do that. But I want to let folks know, too, that Pete Gordon from Prescott National Forest will be in studio on November 10th to give us an update on what occurred on the Prescott National Forest. But go ahead and give us an update on how your wildfire season went this year.
Definitely had an active wildfire season. It's a little different. We're seeing things, kind of shaping up a little different, and this year was no exception. Kind of had exceptional moisture in October, November, so we're feeling good going into the spring or into the winter. And when I came and visited you, we talked about the dry winter, and we've seen that, December, March, April, very dry. So it just kind of shaped our fire season a little bit different. And what happened was, we seen different types of fire. We had more active fire out in the pinyon juniper country pre-monsoon.
Okay.
Of course, then we had a little shot of moisture and some lightning activity on the onset of monsoon, but then that dissipated pretty quick, and we had a pretty dry July. So overall, general summary, it was a good year for us because we didn't have any major wildfire issues that were pushing us. We were able to utilize wildfire for resource benefit, one of the things that we do well in the Kaibab. We ended up with about 20,500 acres of wildfire, beneficial wildfire, and we coupled that with 16,000 acres of prescribed fire. So a very good fire season for us, just a little different than we're used to seeing.
Is that average for you, above or lower?
It's above average for our wildfire and just above average for prescribed fire. But our last 3 years, 2014, 15, and 16, we've been about that. So we're kind of setting a new average. So it's above average from 2003 when we really keep strong statistics for using wildfire, but it seems to be more average over the last 3 years.
Why so much more?
Just looking for more opportunities, and the more fire we actually get out on the landscape, be it prescribed fire, wildfire, the mechanical treatment that's ongoing with the forest restoration, all that just gives us a better footprint to be able to use more fire. It just gives us a better place to go. So it just kind of builds bigger buffers around some of our urban areas, and we're able to utilize more fire during during longer periods of the season now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I hear that a lot too now, is that the urban, these residential areas that are sitting within the forest, I know these are important areas for you to be working on. So these management fires, we're going to see more of these, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be seeing a lot more of this, won't we? Because, yes. How many years have we gone without actually using fire on the forest? It used to be, I remember, where you put every fire out, whether it was lightning or human. Now, if it's a human-caused fire, you have to respond and put it out.
Yeah, our initial strategy for all human-caused fires is to suppress it at the safest and the smallest size possible. Mm-hmm. So yeah, human-caused fire will always be looking to do some sort of suppression strategy. Natural ignitions, though, that opens up the window for us to be able to look at different strategies and how we manage that. Some may still be suppression if they're too close, too hot, too dry, but we've really gone above and beyond to look for opportunities to use it for beneficial outcomes.
Now when a management fire starts, there's a lightning strike, and then you sit down and you look at that area and you say, okay, we're going to use this for management purposes. Is there a map that you have already pre-made that say, okay, if this area gets hit by a bolt of lightning, then this is an area that's going to be a management fire, or is that something that's decided as these lightning strikes occur?
We have some areas where we've gone out and worked with external partners in the communities, and we've got areas identified where the values at risk weigh heavy into those conversations, but we don't have an actual map that says if it occurs here, this is a good spot, because there's so much to consider. On a year like this, when we had moisture in June, we took on some fires that maybe in past Junes, when being hot and dry, we wouldn't really look at it. And so we really leave it open, so when we have that actual ignition, we bring in all that site specific. What's going on that year? What's going on with resources across the country? What's going on in the communities around us? So we don't have it so defined that it's a yes or no once the lightning hits. There's just so much that we have to consider that we really leave it open. You know, Kaibab is well known for using fire outside of wilderness and close to urban areas. And we are able to do that because certain times of the year, it just makes sense, and we can do it. But there's still those windy May, Junes that we've seen in the past that even though you know, it's the same location, we may go put some of those out. So yeah, we don't really define it by a map and say yes or no. We have some areas that we know we have some high values, and then we use that amongst a whole bunch of other information to figure out what's a good location.
So your management fires this year, where were the benefits at? I want to see you guys run on I-40 quite a bit.
Yeah, you know, what was significant for the Kaibab this year was we had some fires pre-monsoon, so pre that July period when we typically get moisture, and it was out in pinyon juniper country, so out north of Williams along Highway 64 180 junction.
Okay.
That was our first go at pure pinyon juniper pre-monsoon, and that's more grassland restoration. So all that juniper coming back up in the open, what was historical grasslands. That was significant for us this year. North Kaibab had one pre-monsoon as well that moved through pinyon juniper. That was a big difference for us, and we've seen that really because of a dry winter. But then we also, after monsoons kind of gave us that shot, we moved a little closer, and we had some activity around Williams, just south of Williams, the Sunflower Fire, which was just south of I-40, probably the one that you were talking about. Had some stuff up on the park boundary at Tucson, South Rim of Grand Canyon.
These were some key areas, though, weren't they?
Oh yeah. All these areas.
When was the last time these areas had seen any fire like this?
You know, some of those Sunflower's first entry, so it's probably been over 100 years since it's seen fire.
Okay.
You know, the pinyon juniper, it could be 200 or 300 years. I mean, that stuff hadn't seen fire. There's some trees out there probably 200 or 300 years old. Okay. That just have not seen fire in so long.
So Mother Nature was just out there sweeping up the floor then?
Yeah. Just gave us a different approach to fire season.
And when those happen, just to make that kind of clear, you guys, okay, the lightning strikes, you know where the fire is, you decide, okay, this is going to be a management area, we're going to let, I think it was, one of them was like 5,000 acres you guys were going to try to treat. As best you could.
Yeah, Burt was about
if it would go
just shy of 6,000 acres.
Right.
So what we do is we really kind of look at a map with our resource specialists, external partners, and we just say, you know, where could this provide some benefits? We have to check it in some areas because of certain values at risk. There may be private land, there may be range infrastructure, there may be different types of habitat. And so we may keep it out of a certain area, but we just look at a big picture, the big map, and just say, where can we see benefits? Where can fire do things for the ecosystem in here, and where may it not be appropriate? And we just look at a big picture, and not really. There's sometimes where we're defined, we don't want it south of this road, so we'll hold it south of that road. But for the most part, we just kind of look at big picture and see where it wants to move around.
Okay, all right, let's take our first break. Former Fire Staff Officer Art Gonzalez with the Kaibab National Forest is in studio today. Stick around. Countywide will be back in just a couple minutes.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
I'm Jenny Garth, And as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. Even though we are one of the most food-rich countries in the world, 15 million children don't know where their next meal is coming from. This is unacceptable, and something the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks is working to solve. Instead of accepting that our country lets billions of pounds of surplus food go to waste every year, Feeding America has made it their mission to help families in need by rescuing this food. Through food pantries and meal programs, the nationwide network of food banks provides more than 3 billion meals, serving virtually every community in the United States, including yours. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank by visiting feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
Welcome back to Countywide. We're talking with Art Gonzalez from the Kaibab National Forest today, getting kind of an update on how wildfire season went and management fires. I think management fires was the big thing that happened this year. We didn't have any really big wildfires in the state except for the cedar fire out there on the eastern border of the state. I believe that was the biggest one. Smoke impacts. That was something that really, I think, hit a lot of folks this year. Tell us a little bit about smoke impacts and how you deal with that.
Yeah, smoke impacts. So it's just a byproduct of fire, and we gotta help folks, understand that when we do this amount of fire, it's going to put out a bunch of smoke. You had mentioned seeing a fire around your neck of the woods, a beneficial fire, but the amount of smoke put up, it just really speaks to the amount of fuel on the ground. Mm-hmm. And we're behind the curve, and we're trying to get some of these landscapes restored, and that means removing a bunch of fuel, which is going to create a bunch of smoke. So some of the challenges are, around your neighborhood, you had mentioned that you'd seen that smoke, it was close to home, but you're seeing the immediate impacts or the immediate benefits.
I feel like I'm a little bit safer living in the forest.
So you deal with a week or two of smoke, but you're going to see years of benefits, years of security around your place. Mm-hmm. The challenge that we have, though, is that smoke lifts up and it travels a long ways. When it gets down into Phoenix or Tucson or Sedona, those folks aren't in a position to really see those immediate benefits. They're going to get benefits. Most of the water down south of Arizona comes off the top of the Mogollon Rim. And if we don't have a properly functioning ecosystem, that impacts that water that gets down to them. But that's years in the making. That's just not overnight. That's not right out your back window. And so the challenge we have is trying to help folks understand our strategy, and we pay attention to smoke. Every fire that we have, we pay attention to smoke, and trying to explain the benefits. We consider those short-term impacts, and we know that it may not necessarily mean short-term to other folks. A week of smoke it's a week of smoke. It's not short-term to some folks. Mm-hmm. But when you provide years of benefits, and you provide that ecosystem with that cleaning that it needs, to provide all the resources, it's tourism, it's camping, it's recreation, fishing, hiking, clean water, security around those urban interface areas. Those are the benefits that we have to weigh against what the impacts of smoke are.
Watershed protection seems to be something that has come up over the last few years. It seems I see it more when I get the press releases from, say, Jackie Banks that, this is a watershed protection project. I believe the Bill Williams Mountain burn area is a classic example of that. And the Schultz burn would probably be a classic example of something that wound up damaging a watershed. Would that be correct?
Yeah, certain parts, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, because the Schultz fire just burned and decimated the area. And then we saw water lines destroyed, a lot of erosion, communities flooded and covered in mud. We had a child die in that fire due to flooding. So there you've got the Schultz burn, which is this out of control, raging, wildcat on the side of a mountain, just annihilating
unnaturally high intense fire.
Right. And then I hear what you guys are saying, you and Vic, and even when Peter in, it's like we have to protect this watershed. So how do you determine where you need to do that in order to protect a watershed?
Well, we could use Bill Williams for an example.
Okay, let's do that.
It's one of our high priority areas on the Kaibab National Forest.
And it's being worked on now?
Yes,
okay.
we finished an analysis on that, and that's coupled with the Forest Restoration Project. So watershed. So Williams, I don't know if it's an up-to-date, but it used to get 70% of its water from surface sources.
Okay.
And so all those surface water sources are fed off of Bill Williams. These are when you get the winter moisture and then the spring thaw that fills all these lakes, that's where Williams get. If we don't do something to treat that and we get that unnaturally high intense fire in the ponderosa pine mixed conifer ecosystem, it doesn't allow that water to just kind of seep down and trickle down into this lake. It comes in big, soil movement, ash flow type runoff, and it impacts those water sources. Then we have to rely on something else. And so the focus of that Bill Williams is to get some treatment on that mountain to prevent that fire that creates that kind of soil movement and the damage to the watershed.
Okay.
And that's just a small picture. That's just Williams. If you think across the entire Mogollon Rim and the Ponderosa Belt above the Mogollon Rim, that is in essence a bigger picture of feeding water down into the valley, to Verde Valley, Phoenix, Tucson. Salt River Project is heavily engaged because of that bigger picture watershed flow getting down into the valley.
It's kind of hard to explain that we're all linked together in the state, aren't we?
Yeah, when
what
you look at
happens up
water,
there
it really
down
brings
here in the
it
middle,
close.
and it affects down south as well. I mean, we are all connected.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because it's all, it's one great big uphill climb.
And when you talk water, you can see how small we actually are. We share water with California, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. So folks in California, Colorado, New Mexico have vested interest in the fire management program we have here in the state because we provide water to so many folks.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about another challenge. Let's move away from fire. For years, it's always been Prescott National Forest, Coconino National Forest, Tonto National Forest. Very busy, high impact, especially during the summer months from people coming up trying to get out of the heat safe in the Phoenix area, okay? Kaibab National Forest, you guys are starting to see some of that too. The kind of forgotten about, tucked away Kaibab National Forest is starting to feel the impacts of people coming up north. You were telling me that before the show.
Yeah, we're seeing an increase in recreational use across the forest. We used to see spikes on the weekends, the holiday weekends, and now we're seeing that it's not really necessarily a spike. It's just heavy use through the weekends. And we're, part of that is folks are discovering that the Kaibab is kind of maybe a little more remote, backcountry, a little more solitude for those camping, fishing, recreational activities. And folks are really discovering it, and folks are coming in waves, so we're getting a lot more activity. We're getting a lot more recreational use out in the woods.
Because you would do, I think the last time you were here, maybe one of the times you were here, you talked about how, the Kaibab was kind of just a drop-off point. People would camp a night maybe and then hit the Grand Canyon or be at the Grand Canyon, camp for a night, and then off they'd go and they'd be gone. Or a lot of tourist traffic coming through just to get to the Grand Canyon. They wouldn't stop on the forest. But you said you've had two experiences this summer going out camping where it gets a little difficult to try to find a spot where you've got some seclusion.
Yeah, definitely. It's all a matter of perspective, right? And so we've talked about some of the high recreational use across the Southwest, and the Kaibab was like this little unknown, undiscovered spot.
Backcountry oasis.
Backcountry oasis, yes. And so I personally camp pretty much every weekend with my boys, and yeah, we've seen that this year. It's getting a little tougher to get away from big crowds.
How do you handle that then?
You kind of go with it. Yeah, you find those spots that are appropriate based on the rules of what's open for camping, and we live close, so we can go a little further in. Those folks that travel hundreds of miles to get here, they're going to look for the closest, best spot. I live a little closer. Some of the local folks from around this parts of the state can go a little further in and get away from those folks. So it's still out there. We're just definitely seeing an increase of recreational use.
So you guys have to be dealing with those impacts here somewhere down the road, at least taking a look at them and seeing what kind of impacts you've got out there.
Yeah,
so.
And from a fire management perspective, that's why we want to try to use more fire across the landscape. Is it just provides more protection for those folks and opens up the woods and makes it a little safer for those folks to use as we start stretching further and further out into the backwoods.
Protecting the forest from us. Okay, Art Gonzalez from the Kaibab National Forest in studio today. Countywide, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But you probably won't. You're busy. Kids, work, show coming back in 48 seconds. So let's do this now. Hold up one finger if you're a man, women 0. 3 more fingers if you're over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40. If you're not sure, keep in mind you're sitting on a couch right now, so 1 more finger if you're not very active. 1 finger if yes, 0 if no. 1 yes, 0 no. Next, find the body type that looks most like you and hold up that many fingers while I look around awkwardly. And that's it. If you're holding up 5 fingers or more, you probably have prediabetes. Sorry to be so blunt, but hey, you're busy. Just go to the site.
This is the story of a boy who is very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help. And slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
If you don't fix them, sparks from dragging tow chains could cause a wildfire, and that could be scary.
Hi, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just a couple minutes left in the program. We want to mention that, first of all, Vic was in here. We talked about abandoned campfires. He said there was 454 on the Coconino National Forest. You guys had a little over 20, like 25 or 26. But you guys are kind of working together on that right now. Right?
Yeah, so the combined total between the Coke and the Kaibab was 475. Trying to make it a bigger campaign, a bigger prevention program and message versus just, well, the Kaibab had this, Coconino had this. So just trying to consolidate those and share that message on a bigger scale.
Okay, all right, so put those campfires out. Doesn't matter what time of year it is, the
Yes.
forest can burn. Next thing I want to talk about, you've got fall and winter programs. We've got a story right now today that says you're burning near Williams, 2,500 acres, and then you've got a 14,000 acre burn scheduled over by Parks.
Yeah, so this is our prime window for doing prescribed fire, October, first part of November. And so folks are gearing up. We had a little shot of moisture, delayed it a couple of days, but looking pretty good for the next couple weeks. So across the Kaibab, we're looking at about 16,000 acres over the next 2 weeks or so, beginning with what you're talking about just south of Williams, about 2,500 acres there. If things go well over the next week, they'll move over near Parks, Pittman Valley, and they're looking at about 5,300 acres there. Got 3,500 acres around the town of Tucson and out east, and about 5,000 up on the North Kaibab. And so if the weather holds this 2 week window, we'll get the majority of our larger broadcast burns completed in the next 2 weeks, and then
Which is going to make you happy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Got to make you really happy. I mean, because I know Prescott National Forest is burning right now in the Verde Ranger District and the Bradshaw Ranger District. Tonto National Forest is doing some burning, I want to say northeast of Payson, so they've got some areas they're working on right now. I think it's pretty safe to say that any forest across northern Arizona has probably got some kind of burn activity going on.
Yeah.
So there are going to be smoke impacts, and we should expect that.
Yeah,
Yeah, be
definitely.
prepared for that.
And just be looking, pay attention to the news and stuff we get out. All forests get out news releases just
Thank
to
you
let
for that, Art.
just to let folks know where this is going to be happening, and kind of we work with Arizona Department of Environmental Quality to try to predict where some of that smoke's going, so that we can let folks know, what to be watching for.
Yeah, and if you see a lot of forest patrols out on the roads, just watch out for them as well. Art, thank you so much for coming in.
Appreciate it.
I guess
sure
we'll see you next
soon.
spring, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, next spring. All right, that's today's Countywide. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll talk to you again next time.